You're going to be better for actually taking the time out to do something for you and forget about work, to go back refreshed, more regulated, to be able to really help those kids that might be coming into your mind and being written down on that list. When you start to get overwhelmed, the things that start to go in your world, you can probably do a little test and be like, if you're stopping doing social connection, if your nutrition is going down, if you aren't sleeping very well, if your routines are gone out of whack, you kind of know that you're in a state of overwhelm. Your body's going to need that sleep. Welcome to Rainbow Skies for New Teachers, where we're all about bite-sized tips and simple strategies for bright and busy new teachers.
If you're in your first few years of your career and want to make the rollercoaster ride of teaching more fun, streamlined and stress-free, you're in the right place.
We're Ashley and Alicia, the dynamic duo from Rainbow Sky Creations, and we're excited to be your teacher mentors on the go. There are rainbows ahead, my friend.
And together, we're unstoppable. Let's get into today's episode.
Rainbow Sky Creations acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Dharawal and Whadjuk Noongar people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. Welcome back to Rainbow Skies for New Teachers. I can't believe this is episode 32, where Ash and I are meeting and chatting about all things to help new teachers and teachers in the community. Ash, how are you today?
I am great. I've had a great morning. What about you?
Oh, look, I might have thought it was a full moon today just based on how my children woke up, but it's all the better now being here, in all honesty.
I know we absolutely love recording this podcast. Alicia and I have been just talking off air and saying how much it is our most favorite thing of the week to do in Rainbow Skies. So thank you for joining us.
Yes. And we're going to talk today about some strategies to help when the overwhelm kicks in, but we thought we'd start with something that would make you chuckle. So, Ashley,
Take it away.
take it away. Take the mic.
So not long ago, we posted on Instagram asking teachers some of the mean things students have said to them. Now, we know kids don't necessarily mean to be unkind, but sometimes the cute little things that come out of their mouths can be a little bit hurtful. So I thought I'd share some of them for you today because I was crying laughing at some of these when I was reading through them. One teacher said she was pregnant wearing an orange-brown jumpsuit. She got told she looked like an Oompa Loompa. She said thank you in a very sarcastic way. And the child said, "You're welcome." And then she realized that he truly meant that as a compliment.
Oh, that's so good.
So there were lots of teachers that got comments about them perhaps having a baby in their tummy and being pregnant when they weren't, which is a little unfortunate. It's happened to me too. But this is another one. It's from a friend of mine. Shout out to Lara if you're listening to the podcast. A student says, "Miss, you need to stand in the boys' line." And she said, "Oh, really? Why?" Student, "Because you have a mustache." Alicia's going, "Oh, no."
Oh, yeah, that probably would have been a kid saying that to me, I'm sure.
What about this one? Student, "Miss, were you alive when the dinosaurs were alive?"
I had a kid say to me once, going, "Miss, I think you must have been painting on the weekend because you've still got white paint in your hair." And I was like, "Oh, baby girl, that's just a bit of regrowth."
They're just the greys. There was a lot of teachers that said, "There's a black line through your hair." And that was just the regrowth from their white blonde hair.
I loved a kid who said to me once, I think it was the same kid. She was just a cracker. And she went to me, "Miss, I really love your dimples." And I went to her, "Oh, I don't recall having dimples. I think they're just smile lines."
They are so cute, straight from the mouth of babes. Okay, last one, and then we'll get into today's episode. This was one of the first comments on the post too. "I regularly get asked, 'Miss, why is your face so angry?' This teacher wrote, 'It's just resting bitch face and it's real.'"
I can relate to that since I have what I call crunchy eyebrow concentrating, where just my frown lines just kick in and people are like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "This is just my thinking face."
You do get crunchy eyebrows, but you definitely don't have resting bitch face. That is for sure. I can assure you, listeners, she does
No.
not.
Yeah, maybe just deers in the headlights sometimes, like, what's going on? Oh.
I think we're all like that from time to time. Okay, let's get into something a little bit more serious. Today, we're going to be talking all about how feeling overwhelmed as a teacher is absolutely normal. what we can do to help us with that work-life balance and easing some of that anxiety that you might feel as a teacher. And this is one of the topics that we're talking about inside our membership, Transform Your First Years, in June. So the teachers that are already inside that membership, we're going to be helping them and coaching them through this, talking about different strategies, different ways, different things that we can do to help ourselves. But if you want to come in and join our community, there is nothing stopping you. Please come along. We will pop the link in the show notes, but more about that later.
Yes. Like we said, overwhelm is something that happens in every teacher's life. And would like to say, yes, it definitely reduces as you become a more experienced teacher. But there are going to be situations in your career that could lead to spikes in senses of overwhelm. I think first and foremost, if you are feeling like this is your constant state, day after day, week after week, term after term, you need to go and make sure you're talking to someone about it. I guess that's the first thing is you have to start sharing your feelings, making sure that you have people in your network that you feel safe to be able to share that I'm not okay. This is too much for me. And I know at my school, I worked in an independent school and we all had access to speaking to a psychologist, a therapist, or a counselor, or a network where we could utilize 10 sessions. So if you have that opportunity to be able to utilize talking to a professional, I highly recommend it. If it's not your norm, try and make it your norm because you're going to benefit from it. But if anything, find a colleague that you feel safe to talk to, a loved one, and sometimes talking to someone externally has that non-biased element. So you're not feeling like you have to justify why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. You're allowed to just feel it.
Yeah. I know sometimes you might be sitting there thinking, oh, this seems silly when you're telling it to an outsider. But that outsider often says, no, that's not silly. That's a completely normal way to feel. I think it's really hard when you are feeling overwhelmed and it looks like everyone around you is just managing it all. It's hard to admit that you're not feeling okay. But that's the first step to start to feel better. I know that whenever I start feeling feelings of anxiety at home, I'm quite an anxious person. As soon as I tell my husband, I'm not feeling that great. And I start to break down perhaps one of the reasons or two reasons why I'm starting to feel that way. I automatically feel that little bit better. And I know I've got to put other things into practice and other things into play, but just talking to somebody and admitting the way that I'm feeling instead of keeping it all bottled inside can really help.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the key there is you're not bottling it inside. I have like what I like to call little volcanic eruptions. I just have to get it out of my system. And if that's like a good 30-second cry, and it might be a 90-second cry. Like I was listening to a doctor and she was talking about how when you're feeling those feelings, it actually, once you let them out, it only lasts for maybe no more than 90 seconds. And then you start to feel that release in your body. And I think as well as sharing your feelings, it doesn't necessarily always mean that you have to verbalize it. Like for me, I like to sometimes just write it down. There's just so much going on in my head and I just need to get it out. And for me, sometimes it's just writing it down. And it might be just doing a journal writing where I just write what's on my mind and I just get it all down on paper. And I might write for 1 minute, but I might write for 10 minutes. And before you know it, after that, I've just got it out there.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, gosh, I'm glad no one had to read this, but it can just be a way to help calm those cortisol levels, just get you out of that flight and fight mode and get you realizing that you can get through this. This is fixable. There is an end sight. It may not be right now, but it's coming.
Yeah. This is your job, you guys. So if you're feeling overwhelmed as a teacher and there's other life factors that come into play too, I completely understand that. But this is your job and you don't need to feel this way. It needs to be an enjoyable experience. And for you to be the best teacher that you can possibly be, you need to be going into the classroom feeling not overwhelmed with those lower cortisol levels. So that's the best thing for your students and that's the best thing for you. So we really encourage you to share those feelings. But I love the idea, Alicia, of you saying that you write it down in a bit of a journal. I'm not really a journaler. I really want to be. I'm desperate to be. People say how great it is. And I've never really thought about writing down negative things. I've always kept a gratitude journal, but you just write down anything that comes in your mind. Is that how you do it?
Yes. For me, when I'm feeling like it's just too much, sometimes I've written a massive to-do list. I've just written down every single thing that's on my mind and I've just written it down. I know we'll talk more about that. Other times I just write about what I'm feeling. I'm like, I'm just so over XYZ. And I have taken it to the next level where I've written it down on a piece of paper and I've just written down everything that is just infuriating me. And I have then got like a little metal bowl and I've set it on fire and just gone, that's gone. I don't need to hold on to that anymore. I have let it go. And if it comes back, you work yourself through it. But when things are really bad, I've done a little sacrificial burning. Sure, it's out there somewhere that people have done those things. That's like a once a year thing, just letting everybody know. But yeah, you can choose to keep the journal. You can just write on a paper and throw it away later. It's a habit that you have to start. And for me, I've probably go through phases where I do it more through certain times of the year than I need to. Term 2 was always my big time. I just be like, oh my God, it's just so much. So much
I
going
know.
on.
Term 2 is a big term. And if you're listening to this in real time, it's term 2 now. So it's always very busy. We've got report cards. You're really in the swing of things. You're deep in curriculum. You're starting to feel those overwhelming feelings creep in. You are not alone.
Yeah. And then number 2, taking time for yourself. Ash was saying, in teaching, there are things that we have to do. It's part of our job. But we spoke to an amazing OT, David Gerber, and he was saying, if you guys aren't regulated, how can you regulate and support the students in your classroom? So that's why taking time for yourself when things start to get overwhelming is really important. Self-care is vital to teachers. It's vital to everybody. And no one's going to force you to put yourself first. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to do it.
I was recently away on a holiday with my family, and my husband has quite a stressful job. Well, he finds it very stressful. So we were away and we're in his absolute favorite place in the world. And often when we go away, he gets sick quite quickly. Like we go away the first day, he gets run down, he's sick, he's just no good to anyone for the first few days. But this particular holiday was different. The first thing he did is he went and dived in the ocean. And then each day the weather was beautiful. He was out snorkeling with the kids, surfing, they were playing golf, doing lots of things outside. And I could just see a lightness in him. And it was because he really took the time for that self-care, the things that really lit him up, which is going outside and swimming in the ocean and just being one with nature. He also put his phone away, which I think is a really key idea for self-care. And shocking for him, Alicia's there going, what?
I wonder if you ever bought your husband a phone jail. He would probably have a conniption and be like, I am not using that.
He would not use it. I did confiscate his phone for the first time ever. We've been married for 10 years and I confiscated his phone about 3 weeks ago when our daughter had a birthday party. I had 22 little girls around at my house, 7-year-olds, and we're having a big Taylor Swift soiree. And he was on the phone trying to do deals out the front. And I was like, that is it. And I took the phone off him. We're all fall victim to that. I do too. I'm tired at the end of the day. I sit on the couch and then I find myself scrolling. And yes, sometimes that can be self-care, but sometimes it's not really either. So
yes, there was one piece of advice that I got given in the start of my teaching career, and it was whenever the holidays rolled around, teachers are so susceptible to just stopping. Like you're going full speed and then like a car going 100 k's an hour and then like the brakes are slammed and you're going to end up with a high impact collision. What does a high impact collision lead to? Illness, broken bones. You're not well. So a piece of advice that I took and has worked, I would pretty much 100% guarantee, or maybe 90% guarantee, is that when the holidays came around, rather than being like, I'm not going to do anything, I would still set an agenda. So maybe what your husband was doing was like, today the weather's so good, I'm going to go snorkeling with the kids. That's like, in his world, a to-do thing, like you would have on your teacher to-do list. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it might be rather than, I'm just so tired, I don't want to do anything. I'd be like, you know what I'm doing? I'm putting on my PJs. I'm going to put my favorite meal on and I'm going to watch 3 episodes of my favorite show. But in your head, you're setting this little checklist and giving your brain, I don't know what it does internally, the physiology behind it, but it would lead to me not coming down with illness within that first week of just having a little goal. So when you're taking time for yourself, set it in your calendar, set it as that little reminder for something that re-energizes you, whether it's treating yourself to getting your nails done, whether it's going to a coffee shop with a girlfriend, whether it is going for a walk, just something that you can do that's going to allow you to forget about work.
Yeah, something that you enjoy. One of our assistants at Rainbow Sky, she's just started taking up crocheting. So she's crocheting like a whole heap of different things. And that's what she does of an evening. She's convinced me to give it a go too.
I'm all into the embroidery. My mother just bought me an embroidery book. She said, Alicia, I'm going to sign this so when I drop off my perch, you'll remember that I gave this book to you. My mum's in her mid-70s. So this is what happens. When someone passes, then you start to think about it a lot more. Yeah, that's something I've been taking up is embroidery. And my little girls are like, can you embroider a dinosaur onto my jumper? I'm like, wow, we are going to challenge 5 level here, kids. Ease in.
I reckon you could do it. I've got no doubt. She's very creative, you guys.
I'll get there.
Okay, let's move on to strategy number 3, which is wish listing and chunking. So, as a teacher, we know that our to-do list is never ending. Like you could just add things onto that to-do list forever and ever, and you're never going to get through and tick it all off. So look at your to-do list like a wish list. Indicate the things that you must do and then things that you just want to do or would be nice to do. And chunking your to-do list that way is a really good way of feeling like you don't have to do every single thing on that wish list or that to-do list. So if you have much larger items on that to-do list or that wish list, break them down into small, achievable chunks to get a sense of progress and completion, because sometimes it's really hard. Like reports is a really good example. You have to write your reports, but just write reports on your to-do list, that's going to be a long time till you achieve that. And there's lots of little steps in order to do that. But you can have a little tick off if you say, complete all A to E's for English, write your general comments. There's lots of different things. Make sure all your data is up to date before you start your reports. So breaking them down into smaller chunks can be super, super helpful, but also just changing that mindset into a wish list instead of a to-do list.
Yeah, amazing how just that switch in that mindset can really make it be like, oh, is it a priority? Do I need to get it done? So give that one a try. I highly recommend that one. I'm all for just write every single thing that's on your mind and then just work out, be like, why was I even thinking about that? That's not something I need to do. Scratch that off.
Yeah.
And you'll feel 100% better.
Totally. Or if something you find is on that to-do list forever and you're just never getting to it, maybe it isn't that important. Like sometimes we make work for ourselves as teachers. We think, oh, that would be good, or I should do this. And we give ourselves the guilt, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, you're going to be better for actually taking the time out to do something for you and forget about work, to go back, refresh, more regulated, to be able to really help those kids that might be coming into your mind and being written down on that list. So
yeah, something that you like doing for yourself before we move on to number 4. If you had, I said to you, Alicia, you've got an hour starting now for self-care, what would you do?
I'd get out of the house, I'd get out of the classroom, I'd get outside, and I would just probably start walking. I'd start walking and I'd probably go find something, head to the beach or just get outside.
Would you listen to a podcast or anything while you were doing it?
When I'm really overwhelmed, I can't do that. I find the more noise I have, it just makes me realize there's probably things I shouldn't be doing that I should be doing.
Yeah.
But for me, it's get into the quiet. Or if I'm reading a really good book, I'm reading a really good series at the moment. I don't read apocalyptic books and I'm stuck in this apocalyptic world. And I'm like, I'd probably go read.
What's the book? What's the name of the series?
It's a author I found on Amazon called Kyra Stone, and it's called The Edge of Darkness. But if you're like got Prime Reading or Kindle Unlimited, look her up. She's amazing. I'm like a rom-com crime thriller, so I'm not apocalyptic. I'm hooked.
There you go. Alicia and I first bonded over books. I would, if it was me, I would definitely go and find a spot, preferably outside if it wasn't raining or cold, and I would read. And I am devouring at the moment the Sally Hepworth, anything written by Sally Hepworth. I've only got one more of hers to go. It's sitting on my nightstand. I started it last night. I'm 20 pages in and I'm devastated. I'm like, she needs to hurry up and keep writing.
I haven't read any of hers, but because you've said so many things, I've got to. If she's not on my Kindle, I'm like, oh, I've got to pay $12 for that. I'm not doing that today.
Pay the $12. You will not regret it.
I won't regret it at all.
She's a page turner.
Yeah. And look, tell us what your thing is, because everybody has a thing that they love to do if they're given that opportunity just to stop and be themselves. I think sometimes as teachers, you can forget what it's like to do something for yourself because you're so used to doing it for everybody else. I think we need to break that narrative. Number 4 we're going to talk about is sleep. When you start to get overwhelmed, the things that start to go in your world, you can probably do a little test and be like, if you're stopping doing social connection, if your nutrition is going down, if you aren't sleeping very well, if your routines are going out of whack, you kind of know that you're in a state of overwhelm. Your body's going to need that sleep. And if anything, it's a time to switch your brain off. Forget about everything that's going on. But your body needs to recharge. Make sure when things are starting to get overwhelmed that you're making sleep a priority. If you're finding it hard to get to sleep, there's all these strategies that you can do of putting your phone away. I'm a big advocate for magnesium spray. Get some Epsom salts and have a bath, and that's going to relax your whole body. People talk about if they actually find it hard to fall asleep, that first thing in the morning, you get outside, you look at the sun is going to alert your brain to like start to be like, oh, we're awake. My circadian rhythm is starting. And another way to do that is when the sun is setting. If you're in a world where the sun is setting, you can see you get outside when the sun is setting. That's reminding your body that, oh, okay, it's time to wind down. And when you go inside, don't have the bright lights on in the evening, put dimming lights on and just create that kind of, it's time. And set your, they say your bedroom, don't have it, if it's getting into the cooler months, don't have it really hot. Have it cool. Your body actually needs a cooler temperature to fall asleep. So sleep, my friends, make sure you're getting some.
And this is coming from two tired mothers, you guys. We know how important it is to sleep. And it is so hard to function at your absolute best when you haven't had enough sleep. And it can be really easy to think, oh, I'll just do this, or let me just work into the night and I'll get some of those things done off my to-do list. But going back to the point that we made before, that to-do list is never going to be finished. You're probably much better off getting some good quality sleep and you'll be much more productive the following day.
Yeah. And if you have young kids and you're teaching,
gosh. Yes.
Example, last night, my 3-year-old was like, Mum, can you come lie in bed with me? I was like, oh, I lied in bed with her. I fell asleep. I came out like an hour and a half later. My husband's like, where have you been? I was like, I fell asleep with Lena. He's like, oh, I thought you ran off to go to sleep. But sometimes your babes are that reminder that you probably need sleep too. Yeah, you could probably get up and you could clean the house or get the lunch boxes ready or who never knows what it might be. But maybe your body's just telling you, just go to sleep with your babes. And if you wake up a bit earlier or 3 other times in the night, you had a bit of time to recharge.
Yeah, if you're a mum, just go easy on yourself because we know we're there with little kids right now. And it's so hard when you've had a restless night and then you've got to go into the classroom the following day. Don't beat yourself up. Try and catch up on that sleep if you can. Sometimes it's absolutely impossible, but get little nuggets where you can too. And know that we're with you and this will end, hopefully.
This time shall pass. Just like this feeling of, there's so much to do.
We want to briefly interrupt this episode to tell you about today's sponsors, Hue. Hue are makers of affordable yet colourful document cameras and stop-motion animation kits, which are perfect for creative teaching, homeschooling, and remote learning. In fact, my dad has borrowed mine to use for his teaching, and he is loving it. Hue Classroom cameras make it quick and easy to share work or record lessons. They are STEM.org authenticated and have won multiple awards worldwide. They are described by many teachers as the complete game changer because of their ease of use, high quality, and versatility. They come in a choice of cool colors and carry cases. The Hue HD Pro cameras and carry cases are now available on Amazon. For your 15% discount, use the code 15 Rainbow Sky on Amazon Australia. Offer is valid until the end of June. We will pop all the information in the show notes. Don't forget to follow at Hue Cameras on social media for news, fun, and giveaways. Now let's get back into the show.
Number 5.
Strategy 5. Move over multitasking. Now, if my mum was listening to this, and Mum, I hope you are listening to our podcast because she is a teacher, she would say, I am the queen of multitasking, but I'm trying to rewire her brain, Alicia, and tell her that multitasking is no longer cool. It's no longer trendy to be a multitasker. And the reason is that multitasking can lead to more feelings of overwhelm. It leads to lesser productivity and we're not doing anything well. When you're switching from project to project, back and forth, you're losing valuable time and brain energy in switching tasks and switching gears. You're much better off is if you stick to one task and do that through to completion because your brain is in the rhythm of that particular task. Now, one good idea when it comes to this, and I do this when I'm working, I make sure that my phone is away, is switch off email notifications or have your message notifications away. So if you're doing some sort of paperwork task, but if you're in the classroom and those email notifications come up, that can be really distracting.
I just say never have them on your laptop.
No.
I just feel just don't have them. If you've got one device, you have it on that. But I don't think, anyway, that's my personal opinion. I never had email notifications on my laptop. It was the first thing I switched off.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. You don't need them. And if people need to get in contact with you, you are a teacher teaching children. We don't have desk jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 6 is clear the clutter. You are going to need some clarity when it comes to dealing with overwhelm. When you've got a messy workspace, it's going to enhance your messy brain space. So if you're feeling like the overwhelm is setting in and you have a look around you and there is stuff piled up everywhere, there are books marked in the corner, there's a library with books all falling out, or you look at your desk and it is just piled. You look behind your desk, there's just stuff there. You're really going to have to just clear the clutter. And it's just going to create that sense of clarity and calmness in your mind. It's like your brain hacking right here. So set a timer. You might not want to actually do it, but just set a timer for 5 minutes and go, I'm just going to clean up as much as I can. It might be that I just get a box and I put it all in the box and I'm going to sort it out another time, but just clear that space. And I guarantee when you walk back into that classroom and you see that clear space, it is going to make you feel better. It's not going to cause your cortisol levels to rise or for you to go into that flight and fight mode where you're like, oh my gosh, I've got stuff to do.
Yeah, even if it's just one little area. So if it's, say, your desk and you really have to sit down and do whatever you need to do, clear up that desk, move your back so you can't see the rest of it, and then you've got yourself a nice clear space. Now, I was given advice once that I'll never forget, Alicia. It was from my best girlfriend, Asha, her dad, and he's very wise, but I'm not sure if this advice was wise or ludicrous. You can tell me. He used to say, if you have a messy desk, then you have a messy car. If you have a messy car, then you have a messy house. If you have a messy house, you have a messy life. And I kind of understand what he means.
Yeah, it's like a snowball effect.
Yes.
But as well, there is truth in what he's saying.
I've never forgotten it. There is truth in what he's saying. As a mum, I look at my messy house and I'm like, oh, Len, my life isn't messy just because I've got little kids running around. But there is some truth in the fact that it does snowball.
Yes. And I think even research proves that it has a greater impact on women than it does on men. And I was chatting to a girlfriend and we were talking about how if we think of men, and look, if there's a male teacher listening out here, please prove me wrong, right? But think of men, they just think of, they're in the living room. They're just thinking of the living room. That's it. But if you think of women, we're thinking of the living room, we're thinking of the bedroom, we're thinking of the bathroom, we're thinking of the kitchen, we're thinking of things that need to be done in bedroom 1, 2, and 3. And when you include clutter into that and mess, it just exacerbates those feelings of overwhelm and that sense of my life is out of control.
Yeah.
And really it's not. It's just one little space. So I think the power of setting a really quick timer and just clearing that space, I can guarantee you're going to be super proud of yourself. And that feeling of anxiety that was rising is going to start to dissipate. 100% guarantee.
Yeah. And the time is a good idea too, because actually it usually doesn't take as much time as what you think. So you set yourself a timer and then you go fast and you get it done. I've been watching this lady on TikTok and since January 1st, she has decided to reset her life because she was feeling really overwhelmed in her home. I think she's a stay-at-home mum.
I've seen
Anyway,
this.
You've seen her?
I think I have.
And so what she's done is she's gone around room by room in her house and she has decluttered every single room. Like, it's madness, you guys. Everything was just like filled to the brim, every wardrobe, drawer, everything. And she's gotten rid of anything that she doesn't need and just kept the bare minimum and reorganized everything. So everything's in beautiful labeled tubs and everything's really easy to access and she doesn't have excess of things. And she's been showing on TikTok how she's going around from room to room and now she's in the kitchen. And that was the last one I watched and she's really decluttering that. And she said her life and her anxiety has been so much lower since she started decluttering, which I think is incredible.
I vouch that. Living in a smaller home, I've been on that journey as well. And I would say teachers are notoriously terrible for holding on to things because at the
Mm.
back of our mind, we're going, I could use that for a lesson. If I ever teach space, I could pull out that collection of egg cartons that I have there. And I think what happens in classrooms is that, especially if you inherit a classroom, you inherit maybe 3 or 5 teachers worth of clutter. And if you're feeling when you walk into your classroom, this is really resonating with you right now, even if it means that at the end of the day, you set a timer for 10 minutes and you go, that cupboard in that corner, it will not beat me. I am going to take out things that I don't need. And do you know what? What's the worst that can happen? If you throw away that, the back of the cupboard, you see there is 40 egg cartons. What's the worst that could happen? Worst has happened, you need egg cartons, you put out a call out to parents, go, anyone got an egg carton they can bring in? We're doing XYZ next term, and you'll get a new set. So sometimes you just got to get rid of the things that you think you might need, you probably don't need, and you might not need them for another 345 days. So just get rid of it.
Yeah, you sound like one of my closest friends that I met teaching in my first year named Sarah. Shout out to Sarah. I've been giving lots of shout outs today. And she's like that. She's like, get rid of the clutter. She was the queen for going around to people's classrooms and saying, I will help you clean out those cupboards from all those years ago.
Oh yeah. I reckon I would happily do that now. So if you're in the Perth area, you need me to come out and declutter your classroom, I would do that. I would love to do that. I would. Now, number 7 is one that we might put aside. And Ash touched on it, reflect on the positive. Sometimes if we're focusing that, oh my gosh, life is really hard, this is really hard, you're telling your brain that it is. You need to redirect that. Start finding those little sparks of joy. Every night around the dinner table, my family, we get around and we share that things that we're grateful for. So funny, my daughter last night, my husband's like, Lena, because the girls have daycare on their Tuesdays, and she's like, what are you grateful for? And she just looked at him, those like big blue eyes, and just went, Daddy, I'm just grateful for everything. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for Olive. I just kind of went through the whole family, every single item in her bedroom. And I think when you start to make this a daily habit, even if it's just like it's hard for you and it becomes a weekly habit, you're going to start to look for more of the positives. And it just becomes a bit of a mindset shift, especially during those tough times. You find those nuggets of gold. Maybe it is that first 3 sips of coffee that you had that were warm that day that really brought joy to you.
Yeah.
Hopefully there are other things.
Or the coffee that I had to scull today because we were coming on to this podcast. I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast before. I feel like I have, but when we were teaching in Dubai, I went through a little bit of a down phase because we were away from home. It was around the time that Alicia actually arrived. And I started keeping a gratitude journal, and my goodness, did it turn my feelings around, because before that, I was so focused on the negatives and what I missed about home and what was different and how hard I was finding it. Starting the gratitude journal, it didn't happen straight away, but over time, it really started rewiring my brain to focus and look for the positive, which is so good for our minds.
Yeah, and make it part of your class. We used to do what went well, and I'd sit down with my kids and I'm like, what went well today? And we'd even talk about what didn't go great. But when you're in that real state of overwhelm, don't focus on the what didn't go great, focus on what went well today. And it'll start to just make it a habit, make things just easier when life does get challenging, because it does, that you know this is fixable, that you're going to get through it.
The other thing teachers are really bad at, they're so quick to criticize themselves, and they're really bad at announcing or celebrating their achievements. We do this at Rainbow Sky too. We have an achievement and we gloss over it and continue to move forward. But really, it's so important that we stop and acknowledge that. We would never treat our students like that. If our students achieved something or did something that was out of the ordinary or learned a new skill, we would make sure as teachers that we would stop and celebrate that with the student, maybe even the class. We would let their parents know. Sometimes we send them off to the principal. Like, we are great cheerleaders as teachers. So we need to give ourselves the same grace.
Yeah. Well said, Ash. Well said.
Thank you.
Our last one, a comfortable one for some, like your husband.
Yeah, tech-free time. Try to self-impose some technology-free time. It can be so liberating. When you turn off your email alerts, delete social media apps, turn your phone off. I don't do any of those things. I just leave my phone in another room. Purposely put it somewhere else.
Yeah, or I forget where it is, and then I get my Apple Watch and go, can anyone hear my phone pinging? Where's my phone?
You know what? That's something too. Apple Watches. If you're finding that you need some technology free time, go and put that Apple Watch away too, because it's so easy to get distracted from the pinging that might come up on it. So give it a try. It may become a regular thing. A good way to practice this at the very beginning, and I love doing this, is whenever I go out to have coffee with a friend or go out for dinner with my girlfriends, I always leave my phone in my bag. And I do that because I can't get distracted from it, and you get yourself immersed in the conversation. But it's a really good way of just easing your way into that technology free time. You don't really need to be contacted unless you've got a
No.
sick kid or something.
And it really lets the people that you're with know that you're really important to me and I really want to
Yeah.
value the time with you. And I would say another way to start this is when you wake up in the morning, don't check your phone.
Mm.
Make it a habit. Can you not check your phone for the first 5 minutes you wake up, first 10 minutes, build a bit of stamina, 30 minutes. I think sometimes now I'm like, oh man, I've been awake for 2 hours. Where's my phone? What's happening today? What are we doing? So yeah, I think sometimes just not starting your day by checking your phone is setting you in a good stead for it not to be the ruler of your life.
Yeah. If you manage to do that, if you think you can get yourself build up some stamina and not check your phone, let us know. I would love to hear some
Yeah,
success stories about that.
we want to cheerlead for you.
We
wanna
sure
be there.
do.
Woo!
So, just recapping, overwhelm is completely normal, but it doesn't feel great and it doesn't need to be that way. Here are 8 different strategies that we've spoken about today that could help. Sharing your feelings with a colleague or with a professional. Take some time out for yourself. Remember that self care is really vital as a teacher. Looking at your to do list as a wish list and then chunking up tasks so you feel that success. Getting enough sleep or prioritizing sleep. Pushing multitasking to the side is not good for productivity, so say goodbye to multitasking. Number 6 was clear the clutter. Set yourself a timer. Get those spaces nice and neat and tidy so you can focus on the task at hand. Change your mindset. Shift that mindset to reflect on the positive, whether it's keeping a gratitude journal or just focusing on the positive and acknowledging your own achievements. And finally, get yourself some tech-free time.
You can do it, my friend. We never want to hear of people who are dealing in overwhelm, but hopefully with these little reminders, it'll just be enough to be like, hey, I'm worth looking after myself and I'm going to do some things to make it better.
Yeah, start with one and move on from there. Start with one thing and just give it a go. Now, if you are a new teacher and you are feeling overwhelmed, you feel like there are all the things, you've got no work-life balance, come and join us inside Transform Your First Years. This is the topic that we are focusing on next month. We're going to be focusing on how to help with those feelings of just all of the things and none of the time.
Yes, come on by. We will put the link in the show notes. Or if you want a little sneaky mates rate, head to rainbowskycreations.com/secret and you can join in through a secret little route. That's our special offer of $18 a month. So come on by. Would love to see you there. And until then, my friend,
There are rainbows ahead.
and together we're unstoppable.